Thanks very much for the introduction, Roger, and welcome to the new series of digital marketing web Lunchinars that we're going to be doing to just talk us about some of the fundamentals of digital marketing and how you can help get your organization online, but not only online, about improving your presence and just making the most of a plethora of tools that are available to you. Roger's covered most of the basics about what the Lunchinars are. They're completely free to attend. Around 30-40 minutes for information, sharing and learning. Then we're going to be doing a question and answer session. At the end of it, at the end of every session, we've got a takeaway. For this one, it's going to be the jargon buster. But if there's any terms that you're not sure on, don't be afraid to ask the question at the end. I've got pretty good knowledge of most of these things. I've been doing it for a good 20 odd years. And all of these are available to watch again later if you want via the Lunchinar website. And I'm sure Roger and his team will send a link out to you. So, who are Ionic? It's me. I'm classed as a micro agency. I work with a very small team that specialise in digital marketing. I've been going for nearly 20 years now in various forms, and through that time, I've won quite a few awards. Southend based, born and bred. I love local. I never liked the idea of travelling up to London. I like working with small local businesses that really want to improve their presence, but haven't got the London agency fees that go with it. Over that time, I've launched just over 400 websites, 427, another 3 going next week. So it's quite exciting, and it keeps me kind of nice and busy. I don't believe in technobabble. I could talk to you really technically, but I think most people don't understand it. Most people don't appreciate it. And I won't say it on the webinar, but you can see it there. It's the whole no bull approach. You shouldn't be pulling the wool over people's eyes. There's some really basic things that you can do yourself. But there's also people like me at the background that can advise and help. And there are lots of other people that can offer advice to really help you get to where you need to be and should be in some circumstances. So we're going to start off on this with the real 101, the digital jargon buster. There's probably lots of terms that you've heard, things like cookies, pixels, conversion, optimization stuff. There's loads out there. We've just picked a selection to give you a very brief insight. And we'll start with one of the basics, a domain name. It means a lot to some people, but not a lot to others. It's got to be something short, sweet, and memorable. But it's the address that people type in to go to your website. Typically, it's made up of a name.com.co.uk, the ones we're familiar with in the UK. There's a whole load of others out there. My domain name ends .digital. You can have a .charity domain name. But your domain name should also be used for your email address, so people can associate you and your brand alongside your domain name and website. The trick is to keep it simple. No one likes to have an overly complex domain name that they're not sure how to spell, where it's got too many words in it. Keep it short, keep it simple. Hosting. Hosting is where your website resides on the internet. It's the place that when people type in your domain name to go to your website, the hosting platform is what provides the actual website to that person. You want to make sure that it's a suitable hosting platform, something that's fast and reliable. You don't want to be using a server that you've got at home or a server that you've got in your office. It needs to be something that is dedicated to hosting websites and is fast and available to everyone. Conversions. It's one of those buzzwords that everyone talks about, especially things like conversion rate optimization. It's someone completing a predetermined action on your website. So whether that's clicking on the contact us button, whether that's clicking the find out more button, whether that's clicking the read more button, they are all conversions. And it's according to you how you determine to measure those metrics. So for some people, just having everyone click on an email is classed as a conversion, and that can produce some really good results. For other people, they might want to do, it could be a donation button and things like that to get the most out of the website. Responsive. It's the idea of making a website suitable to fit across a desktop, a tablet, a mobile, in fact, any device out there. If we go back a good 10 years to old style web design, things were designed for a desktop computer because mobiles, tablets weren't readily available and they weren't available with internet access. So you could design a website that fitted to that size and that size only. Now that we've got various formats of iPhones, iPads, Samsung tablet, everything's got a slightly different screen size. So the idea of responsive web design is to make sure that the website is suitable for all those screen sizes. To do that, when you design it with various breakpoints that as it makes things smaller, you wrap things around, things go on top, things go below to make it really easy for people to navigate. The really obvious thing that people always forget is test it on as many different devices as you've got. If you've got a device, if your partner's got a device, your mum, brother, sister, anyone that can access it, get them to test it for you. Analytics is the way you measure traffic and behavior on your website. Google Analytics is a free tool. You can sign up for it for free. It's very simple to include on your website. It's just a few lines of code, but it gives you some really useful, insightful information about who's visiting your website, how they're using the website, and sometimes where the problems lie in your website. It will start to tell you things where there's dead links and bits like that. There's a lot of information in one place. You need to have a very good understanding of how it works, but you can get some really good insights just with the basic level. Search engine optimization. It's in my industry, it's the dark art of how you make your website appear top of Google. There's no exact science to it. It's a lot of hard work to get there. But the important thing to remember is no one ever looks on page 2. No one ever looks on page 3. People are more likely to refine the search to find what they want as opposed to clicking around to try and find it. Having said that, most people want to look in the top 5 results. They don't want to be looking too far. There's ways and methods of making a website rank highly. We're covering that in one of the future sessions in a couple of weeks' time. But one of the pure basics is using heading tags properly. So a H1, H2, H3, which I appreciate don't actually mean a lot at the moment. Please watch the one on search optimization. It'll become a lot more obvious. But it's a very simple hierarchy of content on your website, which helps Google understand what's more important than other things. And it's about getting that key message right in terms of what people are going to be searching. Content management system. It's fair to say probably a good 75% of websites out there use a content management system. Most of them will use things like WordPress, which is a fantastic tool to build a website on. There are other platforms out there, GoDaddy, Ionos, Webflow, Wix and Squarespace. I'll come into those in another session. They're good if you want to just get started, but they're not great if you want to take it to the next level. But it allows you, someone else, anyone you delegate access to be able to quickly and easily edit a website, whether that just be updating some text, adding some, maybe a news article or two, changing some images. It makes it really, really simple. And a lot of the new content management systems, you can actually edit from your phone when you're on the go. So if you're actually at an event, you can post, a bit like you would social media, you can post them directly onto your content management system. A blog. There's a big misunderstanding about what a blog is, but it's kind of an informal piece of information that you make available. It could be a news section, it could be insights, it could just be general updates. All these things are deemed blogs, and when you create a blog section of your website, you can categorize them. A common issue people suffer is they create a blog section on their website, they post on it 3 times, and then nothing. So when you have visitors come to your website, and with blogs, you tend to have dates on them, and people think, oh, they haven't posted in a couple of years. It makes your website look out of date very quickly. So if you are going to use a blog, and it's a really good way of helping Google rank your website as an authoritative subject, make sure you do it regularly. And don't overcommit either. Don't start saying, I'm going to do one a week. Start by doing one every other month. If you can do more, but at least you're committed to a bare minimum. UX and UI, they're great buzzwords at the moment. There's a lot of UX and UI specialist designers, and it's in its most basic form, it's how your website works and how your website looks. Is it simple for someone to navigate? Is it pleasing on the eye that someone might want to click on it? Is it bright pink? That doesn't work. Does it have good contrasting colors? Is the menu in the right place? Have you made the logo in the top left-hand corner clickable to go to the home page? These are all little things that become part of the UX and UI design and development. And sometimes it's very difficult to see the wood from the trees. As a designer myself, I know how I expect people to use something that I've designed. Normally, I actually give it to my mum to test. She's not the most technical people, which is great, because what I want is actually someone to try and break it to a degree, try and click things that I wouldn't expect them to do, because it gives me a good insight as to what works and what doesn't. And I'd urge you guys with your websites, get someone else to try and donate, get someone else to try and contact you. How easy is it for them to find the buttons they need to? Skipped one. Influencers. This is a relatively new thing and has spurred off a lot of these Love Island, Towie kind of shows. An influencer can be really beneficial to you, especially if you've got someone notable that's got a big following. They will help you get a message out to a lot of people very quickly. Basically, you tap into their network of people and their network and so on and so forth. Choose quality, not quantity. You could have one really good influencer that gets you some great coverage. You could have 10 influencers that have only got a couple of thousand followers that won't get you far. So just be wary of who you're using and what the message is. Infographics, these are a fantastic way of getting some what could be quite complex information to people, but in a friendly form. They're great for sharing on social media. They're great for creating blogs on websites, but it's a way of consolidating lots of information into something that's quite colourful and quite simple for people to look at. Canva's great for this. They have some infographic templates. We're covering Canva in one of the other sessions. Brilliant tool. I'd urge everyone to sign up to it. As a graphic designer, I hated it. I thought it was going to take my job away from me. But what it's actually done is allowed people that haven't got much experience to create something that works really well. They've got some really good templates. The other bonus is the pro version is absolutely free for charities. And then one of the future sessions will tell you how to get access to it for free as well. Tracking pixels. These are fantastic. From a digital marketing point of view, everyone should be tracking data. We hate it happening to us, but it has a really good purpose behind it. Tracking pixel itself is a 1 pixel by 1 pixel square, which is absolutely minute on the screen, so much so you can't actually see it. But what it does is track the behavior of the website. So things like Google Analytics uses tracking pixels, but there's a Meta, which covers Facebook and Instagram, use tracking pixels, LinkedIn use tracking pixels, and various other platforms. What it does is it allows you to capture people's user information, all discreetly, it's all GDPR correct and everything else, but it allows you to reuse that at a later date. The important thing is if you do start tracking people, make sure you've got a cookie policy, make sure you've got a privacy policy, letting them know, also giving them the opportunity to opt out of it, which meets the GDPR requirements. And linking really well into the pixel stuff is retargeting. And everyone would have seen this at some point. It's when you've been looking at holiday the night before, and all of a sudden you're flicking through Facebook and Instagram, or just a website, and you think, I was looking at that yesterday. That's not purely by chance. That is a tracking pixel that knows you were looking at something, and a retargeting advert is putting it back in front of you. It's a really cost-effective way of reaffirming your message to people and trying to capture anyone that might have disappeared. And I'd say to you, even if you aren't running any ads, even if you haven't necessarily got the intention of running any ads, start collecting that data. It's free to do, but it has value to it. It might be a couple of years down the line that you suddenly think, we want to start running a new campaign. We've got a particular campaign that we want to focus on. It can retarget all these people that have previously visited your website. And that's kind of the digital jargon buster. At the end, in the QA session, if you have any questions or if there's any buzzwords you're not sure on, ask away. I'm more than happy to share as much as I can. My knowledge is your knowledge. Some of the common questions that I certainly get asked around websites in general and digital marketing: can I do it myself? I get asked very regularly. The answer is yes, you can. Anyone can. Anyone with a bit of savvy can do it, but it links into my next question. Should you do it yourself? The answer to that is probably no. Everyone's got their specialisms in life. I'm a terrible bricklayer, and I'll happily admit that, but I'm very good at building websites. And I think sometimes you're better off focusing what you can do really well, as opposed to trying to facilitate doing everything. There are people out there that specialize in building websites. I'm one of them. Hey, but I think it's fair to say people can use things like Wix to build a website. You can use Squarespace to build a website. They won't be very good websites. They won't be particularly search engine friendly, and they probably won't be that easy to use across platforms. So today, if you can, try and use someone that's a specialist. And if you are using a specialist, how much should you be paying? It's very relative to what you're getting. If someone gives you a quote that's in the thousands, be very wary, especially as a non-profit organization. I think it's fair to say that you should be getting a good deal. I was talking to a guy called Joel from Charity Digital, who, again, is in one of the future sessions, and his catchphrase to me to relay to you guys was, anytime someone gives you a quote for something, ask them what the charity rate is. Don't just take it as gospel, that's the price. Beat them down as much as you can. Unless it's me and you want me to do the work, don't be doing that to me. But no, there's always scope for movement. And sometimes it's just thinking about, do we need all these things on our website? Do we need all these things in our digital arsenal to really hit the marketing? Sometimes you need to start off with the real basics and then build upon it. But it's a very ambiguous question. How much should I be paying someone? It's very relative to what you're getting. I'd say that an average website shouldn't really be costing you more than £1,500 to £2,000. But it is, I reiterate, it's very relative to what you're going to get for that. Can I use something like Wix to build my website? Alongside Wix, you've got the likes of Squarespace. I covered it a minute ago by saying you can. And if you're a one-man band plumber that's just looking at the local area, I'd say it's really good. But if you're certainly a small business organization that wants to be found in Google, wants to use the website to future-proof your business, I'd really urge you not to. They are great at what's deemed in our industry as WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get. Click and drag, things like Microsoft Publisher, where you can click things and drag them across the screen. It's great, but actually it's not very good in terms of responsive design, and long term will cause you more problems because it will get to a point where you'll have to build it in a different platform like WordPress. Does SEO really work? Yes, it does. It's very difficult, and there is no exact science, and there's loads of elements to it: on page, off page, technical, non-technical. Some of it is just down to the words you use on the website, making sure that they're relevant to what people will be searching for. Some of it comes down to design. One of Google's new metrics is looking at how eco-friendly your hosting is, so making sure you're using something that's green. There's lots of different parts to SEO. There's a lot of stuff that people can do themselves. Some stuff is a bit more technical and you might need some help with it, but there's some tools online, which we cover in another session, that can really help you to achieve some. Even just getting to number 2 in Google is a really good starting point. The number 1 spot's always the difficult one, but getting second or third's good, and that gives you a great advantage, because if people are struggling to find you at the moment, by doing some SEO work will really help you build up there. The really annoying thing with SEO, Google have this tactic that they like to keep the playing field fair. So every time that you start to get good traction in Google, every couple of months, Google just completely turn the whole thing on its head and change what they want websites to be found for. So we get these Google updates come through. We have to try and decipher what they actually mean in terms of the front end, what the user sees. So it's an ever-changing minefield. If you get to number 2 in Google, you won't stay there. If your website stays stagnant, you will slowly start slipping down the search results. So that covers some of the more common questions. Again, the question and answer session, if you've got anything you want to ask, please raise your hand and we're happy to answer them. We wanted to have a quick look at some of the artificial intelligence bits that are out there. It is a huge part of marketing at the moment, and it's changing quickly. Some of you have probably used some AI tools without necessarily knowing you are. Even things like predictive text when you're writing a WhatsApp message, that is AI, because it uses collective data to learn based on user behavior. It tries to simulate human intelligence, and as we all know, not all humans are intelligent. So there's always scope for things to go wrong with it. But it can be harnessed and used to really help you overcome some simple tasks that you might not know how to do. I use it sometimes if I'm coding something, but I'm struggling with how to write the code. I'll ask AI to help me, because it uses parts of the internet to help educate you, but in different ways. So some of the common tools, ChatGPT, huge a couple of years ago when it first came out. It was this real idea of you could talk to a chatbot, but it had some really good. It really helped you to do a lot of things. It's classed as a natural language processing tool, which basically means you can talk to it like a human. You can ask it basic questions and it will give you basic answers. You can ask it complex questions and it will give you answers, but the answers aren't always helpful. It tends to do things in list format. It tends to have a lot of sometimes spelling issues because it's US English versus UK English, and tends to have quite a lot of grammatical issues within it as well. But it can help you do some really basic stuff. There's a recruitment company that I do some work with. They use it to help them write replies to candidates. They put in some bullet point notes, and it churns out a really good email off the back of it. But there's some things to be quite wary of with ChatGPT. It can be a really useful tool, but you have to bear in mind that if you're using the free version, it only uses data from 2021 backwards, so it hasn't got access to anything new. Likewise, it doesn't have live access to the internet. So if you're asking it to talk about who won the Grammys 2 nights ago, it'll have no idea. It'll be able to tell you about who won them in 2020, but it'll have no understanding of who won them 2 days ago. The answers can be biased. It doesn't always understand what you mean. It's a bit like talking to a human. Sometimes it interprets the question you're asking in a different manner. So you have to be a bit wary of that. As I mentioned, it often replies in list format as opposed to sentences. And then when it does reply in sentences, they're very long sentences, huge paragraphs of text that you really have to break down. ChatGPT, from a marketing point of view, can be really useful in writing things like website content, writing marketing emails, even writing marketing plans to a degree, but they should be used as a reference point, not as the actual document. They give you a really good starting point, but they're not really designed for actually just copy and pasting into something new. Another cool AI thing that's come out recently is Canva Magic Studio. Now, as I say, Canva is a fantastic tool. The pro version's free for nonprofits. I'd urge everyone to sign up to it. The AI-powered Magic Studio is just cool. You can ask it to design something for you, and it design it for you. It's like having a graphic designer sitting next to you constantly. It might not be exactly what you want, but again, give you the opportunity to change colors, change styles, change fonts. I actually managed to get a video of it that shows how simple it is to ask it a simple question, and it will give you some designs that you can then use, and then you can then customize them to your particular brand, what you're looking to achieve. They also, with the pro version, you get access to a whole load of stock images, which are really useful as well, because normally you have to pay for them. But yes, we're going to cover Canva in another session. I don't know how we're doing for time. We're actually quite early because I feel like I've spoken a lot and spoken really quickly. So I suppose now's a really good opportunity to open the board up for anyone to ask any questions. But likewise, if you haven't got any questions, I won't keep you from eating your lunch.
That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Dan. If you can stop sharing your screen, maybe we can ask for people to give us a wave if they have any questions, or put your virtual hand up. If not, I had a couple, Dan, as you were going through, if that's okay.
Sure.
The first one actually is more of a thought. So you were talking about the UX and UI, which is the user experience and user interface, and how Dan's mum is a pro tester of all your websites. And it was just to make a comment, really, that especially for charities, and we're one of them, we support lots of different people, and our websites might be for specific demographics of people. So it might be aimed at older people, it might be aimed at people with a disability or younger people. So it's just really, rather than using Dan's mum for all of this testing, just to think about the people that the website's targeted at. So if it's for older people, have a think about how some of your service users could test the website before it goes live, or how you might have some contacts within that particular audience.
It's a very good point, Roger. And whilst I use my mum to test some stuff, the other thing I like to do is give it back to the clients, but ask them to just sort of create a select few of their maybe end users that are going to be using the website. Because like I see it from a design point of view, the client might see it from their point of view, but actually it's the end user that we need to understand how they want to use it. And sometimes they feedback some really important things that it can be quite obvious at times, but it just takes that fresh pair of eyes to see something in a different way to really help you understand how you can improve it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dan. And then the other one I had was around retargeting. So this is new to me, I'll be honest. In terms of that preparation that you'd said, in case you need it in the future, is the retargeting part of Google Analytics, or is there a separate service or product that people can use?
It's a separate service. So Google Analytics just tracks people that use the website in terms of what pages they land on, how long they're going to be there, etc. The tracking pixels that are used for retargeting have to come from the platform you're going to be retargeting on. So, for example, if you wanted to run some adverts on Facebook, you'd need to use Facebook's tracking pixel, which is actually it's called Meta now. It would be Meta's tracking pixel. If you use the Business Manager suite within social media, which most of you probably should if you've got a Facebook page, you can get it set up from within there. It gives you some code, a bit like Google Analytics does. It gives you about 6 lines of code you can pass on to your website people. If you're using one of the website builders, they tend to have a platform where you can put your own code in. So you can copy that code into your website, and then on the Facebook side of it, you can see when it's live and you can see when people are starting, or that data starting to be collected of people that have visited the site. But yeah, every different platform has a different tracking pixel. I use some tools within Google Chrome that help identify tracking pixels, and it's not uncommon if you're looking at a big, especially e-commerce website. I was looking at B&Q the other day because I was talking with a client about it. They had something like 27 different tracking pixels, and they are all things that are monitoring what I'm doing on the website. It's all, as I say, it's all GDPR friendly. You're not collecting people's shoe sizes, age, things like that. It's just very generalist information. But they use that to harness the information about who's using the website and to future market to them.
Okay. And this will no doubt be covered in future series, but are there key ones that you'd recommend to people on this call to think about? So we covered Meta, which would be Facebook and Instagram.
Yes.
Are there any other?
Twitter, which is now known as X, have one. Not many people are using X at the moment. Since its takeover by Elon Musk, it's gone a bit weird, for want for a better word. I'm not sure. Personally, I'm not sure how long it's going to be available for, but that remains to be seen. But they do have a tracking pixel. LinkedIn have a tracking pixel. So if there were 2 that I'd suggest to use, Meta definitely, which covers Facebook and Instagram, and LinkedIn definitely. They would be the 2 most valuable ones. And when it comes to actually using that to retarget people, you can define an audience based on what they've been looking at. So certainly for retargeting in terms of e-commerce purposes, we tend to target people that may have been to different product pages, may have been to the checkout page, but have not completed the purchase, because we know that they are still potential customers. And sometimes it's a case, and I'm doing some work with a florist at the moment, that we've set up some tracking pixels. And if someone drops off at the point they go to checkout, if they haven't bought it, 2 days later, we put a message onto their social media to say, hey, did you forget something? It's simple, but it's really effective.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that, Dan. Rebecca, can we come to you, please?
Lovely, thank you. I was just wondering if I could have some confirmation. So if I put a tracking pixel on our LinkedIn, is it tracking anyone that's gone to LinkedIn, and then does it take them to a random thing on our website, or does it? I'm not quite sure how it works. Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fine. It's a good question. So yes, it doesn't track people throughout LinkedIn. What it does is it tracks people just on your website, but it means that when you're looking to retarget to them, you can say to LinkedIn, we know this selection of people have been to our website. Please show them a message.
Okay, that makes sense. Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Del?
Thank you. I'm a little bit confused. When you say using like LinkedIn and Facebook tracking pixels, how do we do that?
So within Facebook, you go to the business manager, and I'm more than happy to almost do like a step-by-step approach that we can share out to people. We'll cover it more in the social media session, but I might use it as create a PDF to show people where to get it from. But you go to a particular section, They've actually changed the name of it from a tracking pixel to an event manager because Meta like to be a little bit different. But it's known in the industry as a tracking pixel. Same way with LinkedIn, when you go into the campaign editor within LinkedIn, which is part of their advertising tool, there's a place that you click a button to generate your code that's relevant to you. It's important that if you've got multiple pages set up within Facebook, you use different tracking pixels for each one. You don't want to use one tracking pixel that covers everything because that's just a huge mess. You keep them segmented and segregated between pages.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dale. Thanks, Dan. Frida.
Thank you, Dan. I just had a question about the Google Analytics. So what type of information do they need to be able to set that up?
In terms of the designer developer or in terms of you?
In terms of me.
So very simply, if you just go to Google and type in analytics, you will go to the Google Analytics page. It's a free platform to sign up with. The only prerequisite is you have to have a Google account, but you can register your own email address on there. Once you go to Google Analytics, it will take you through a step-by-step process of creating the tracking code that you will need. At that point, it starts tracking data. Google changed the metrics last year. They went from something called Universal Analytics to GA4. I won't bore you with the technical reasons behind that, but a lot of it was to do with EU regulations. But it will start tracking live data. You can see live traffic appearing, and on one of the future sessions, I'll show you some websites that you can see actually live data. But you only need a few lines of code. You apply it to every single page on your website, but then the viewpoint you get at the back of that is really insightful to know what pages people are landing on, what's the most visited page, the longest the time they're spending on certain pages, and they're really useful to make sure that you have the relevant messages on the relevant pages, because you could have a landing page that you focused all your attention onto, got some really good call to actions, but only 3 people visit it. But if 160 people are visiting your homepage, how can you harness that to make it even more useful?
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Frida, do you know how your website is made? Do you know what it's built with?
So this is the thing that I think maybe is my main takeaway from today. I didn't set up the website myself, so I need to figure out who actually did it and how it was set up. Yeah, that's one of my homeworks from after this session.
Okay, that's great, because if you bring that to a future session, I'm sure Dan will be able to give you a little bit of specifics of how on that platform or how with that technology you can put that bit of code onto your website.
Yeah, and unfortunately, every platform is slightly different. There are some things like Wix and Squarespace, they do make it quite easy. Some of the other page builders, you sometimes have to go in and edit some custom code, which looks really scary, but I promise you it's not. But it's just knowing what you're going to do and making sure you do it in the right approach, and knowing that you remember what you did just in case it goes wrong, that you have to undo it, because we've all been there.
Brilliant. Thank you. Are there any other questions, or is anyone about to go on a journey of creating a website for their charity or thinking about a particular piece of marketing? Keely, hello. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
That's okay. So I've got a Wix website, which is a bit of a pain sometimes because it's quite restricting on some of the things that you can do on it. And kind of what we're offering has grown, and there's lots of different things going on. I find it really good because of the database side of things, so it stores everyone's information. But I'm thinking maybe it should go over to WordPress or somebody. How easy is that to kind of migrate that over, or am I going to lose all the information in the background?
Not lose information, but actually what you said is it's what I see a lot, where people start off small, use something like Wix, and as you grow, you kind of think, well, yes, I can do some things, but it's really difficult to do others. In terms of collecting data, not that I want to keep saying it, but in another session we cover more about that. But there is ways you can export that data, especially when it comes to people's names and email addresses. If you use Wix as a marketing platform in terms of email marketing, you can extract that data and put it into a different platform. Things like MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, they offer, in some circumstances, free versions. Others are cheaper for non-profit. In terms of migrating the rest of the website, unfortunately, it is a case of Wix stays in Wix. You copy everything out, you then delete that, and you start afresh. But sometimes it's not the worst thing to do. And certainly when you've got a website that started off with 2 or 3 pages, grows into 15, nearly 20 pages, you've kind of added a bit here, added a bit there, bolted that bit on there. It's like building a house. There's only so many extensions you can do before sometimes you've got to say, do you know what? Let's floor it. Let's just start again, but start again knowing what we know. So that all those years of experience of using Wix are really beneficial, and how people are using your website, because Wix have their own version of analytics built in, and you can use that information that's been collected to build something bigger and better that will take you forward for the next 5, 10, hopefully 15 years.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan and Keely. If I can just add as well, Keely, you're at a point where you've got your content, you've got images, you know what you want to say to your users. So although from a technology point of view, you're kind of starting from scratch, you've actually got a lot of the work there already. So it's not like you're 100% starting from scratch, because a lot of things with website is about what you're saying on there, what images you want to use, your branding, and you've got all of that. It's just how it's made, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And as I say, that all that hard work that you put in all of those years to get to where you are can still be used. It's not going to be lost. It's just Wix that it's going to be lost, but you can copy everything else across.
Okay, because that's what worried me, with all the background information, and because clients book onto classes and sessions. So we run a yoga business, so
Right.
it's all in the background, and they just book, and I can go and see who's booked on what, and yeah, everything's there. And I'm worried if I'm going to lose all that information.
I don't want to overpromise. Some might be lost, but you can certainly copy a vast majority of it over, even if it's a case that we have to download it in some sort of maybe Excel format so it's there as a reference. But unfortunately you're going to hit a point soon where you're going to have to change to something.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's about
Thanks,
ripping that
Keely.
plaster off.
Thanks.
Thanks, Keely. Tim, can we come to you next, please?
Thanks. I've run a very small charity, and it would be lovely if we could get a grant or something to actually enable someone to professionally rebuild our website. At the moment, we're looking to have a fairly educated volunteer do it for us. Using WordPress, so at least would be a good, decent tool. My thought was, if we did manage to get funding or get someone to design a website for us, would that effectively then mean we'd need to enter in a maintenance contract to do any change on the website, or could it be built and then we could look after it ourselves?
Very, very good question. WordPress, I'm trying to think of the right words. WordPress is fantastic. It's such a universal platform that you can do anything with. Sometimes though, you log into the admin area and you'll look at it and you'll just think, whoa, there's a lot of different buttons, there's a lot of different things that I can do, but you can do a vast majority yourself. As long as whoever builds it for you does it in the correct manner, and there's, like with anything, there's a right way of doing it, there's a wrong way of doing it. As long as it's been done professionally, it should be built in a way that you can log into WordPress and you can make all the changes. It's not uncommon for a design company, a digital agency, to try and enter into a maintenance contract. At the end of the day, for me and my business, it's a residual income. There are months that I don't have to help people, but there's months that they need a lot of help. My viewpoint is I'd much rather build someone a website, almost hand them the keys and say, it's yours now, you maintain it, you update it. However, if you've got a technical issue, I'm always here to help you. So I don't actually, fundamentally, I don't agree with maintenance contracts, because the person you're paying is always winning. But it's like insurance. It's a waste of money until you need it. So depending on the value of the maintenance contract and what they're offering, I'd be very wary of it. You can do the vast majority of it yourself, especially if it's just updating things like pictures and text. If you've got some really technical aspects behind the scenes, you might be better off having a maintenance contract to protect you for the future.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. And if I can, this is one of my bugbears, so I'm going to jump in on this one. I think, Tim, it's for when you're looking for a supplier, you can build that into the proposal, into the specification. So as well as them setting up in a way that your organization can use it for 99% of the things without needing them. You can also build in some training. Something like WordPress, to get the hang of the basics, could be done in an hour. So it's not a huge undertaking for that organization. And I agree with Dan, it's very one-sided, because most of the time, once your website's set up, you don't really need any changes unless you're implementing something new. It shouldn't break, because they should have made it in the correct way in the first place. And if you're bringing in something new, that's when you expect to pay anyway, so you can do it on an ad hoc basis. And also, it's about 60-70% of the world, Dan, is powered by WordPress online. So
yeah, there's two different sides to WordPress. It's something we're going to cover in the next session.
Okay.
You've got WordPress.org, which is where you can go and sign up your own website, but it's a very limited version of WordPress. What a lot of web development agencies, and it's what I do, you can download the core basis of WordPress, you can put it on a different platform, but you can really customize it. And that's where you can really harness the power of it, because it's got a fantastic content management system built into it. It's a fantastic blogging tool. It's got mobile apps that you can integrate, but there's this whole library of plugins that you can use to really get the most out of it. And these are plugins that sometimes paid for, they're sometimes free, but if there's certain things you want to do, actually there's normally a plugin for that. It's a bit like the whole Apple thing, there's an app for that. There's actually a plugin for it. You've got to be wary of some of the plugins. You don't want to add too many plugins, but actually sometimes when it comes to developing a website, and I've certainly come across this, you think something's going to be really complex because you're going to have to do it from scratch, but actually 9 times out of 10, someone's already done it. So why not use that? And sometimes it's actually cheaper to pay them to buy what they've already done, because it's there and it's fit for purpose.
And because it's so popular, Tim, you're not tied to one individual, one developer, one company. So I'd say, pretty much every developer has got the skills to be able to use WordPress. So you're not, trying to think of the right terminology I can use on video. You're not restrained to that one company. It gives you the flexibility to find different options in the market as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's such a universally accepted platform for building on. If your developer can't build with WordPress, don't use them. They're not a developer. I've certainly experienced over, especially the last couple of years, of things like Wix coming out, loads of so-called design agencies that are charging people a lot of money to build them a Wix website. You can do it yourself for £7 a month. You shouldn't be paying someone, in some circumstances, thousands of pounds to do that. It's not ethical. I don't agree with it at all.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tim, for that question. And Dan, your response. Jackie, over to you.
Dan, sorry. In your other sessions, obviously charities have really suffered in the last couple of years, and getting their message across is really key. You've talked about the social media channels and how they can get their message out there, and things like call to action. In the next sort of sessions, are we going to be covering the benefits of maybe having a particular type of social media calendar, one that might be educational, one that might be a testimony, and one that might be maybe like a call to action? Because I think that's going to be really key in terms of getting the message out there, and in particular engaging with businesses, which is where we all got together in the end, was around bringing businesses to the forefront of charities and how to raise their awareness.
Yes, very good point. You almost very naturally led me into my next slide that was going to come up, talking about. In fact, I'm going to share my screen so that we can all take a look at the next couple of sessions coming up. What's happened here? Can you all see that?
We can, but it's minimized. It's not your full screen. That's it.
Right, so coming up soon, we have next session, which is 2 weeks from today. the basics of a website. We'll look at things like WordPress. We'll look at some of the other builders. So actually, from some of the questions today, I think it'd be really useful for you guys to tune into that one. That's on the 21st of February. Following that, we have all around social media. So getting the most out of online interactions. So using social media and some other platforms to really get the message out there. We will cover things like social media calendars and how to build one. We've got some tools in there about how to get the most out of it. What a lot of people tend to suffer from is posting at 11 o'clock at night because that's the only time they've got available. But actually, because social media works as a timeline, by the time someone sees that the next morning, it's been forgotten about. So there's some tools in there to help you with that kind of thing. So that's the 6th of March. 20th of March, we're covering some of the basics around search engine optimization. That's a part of it. We're also going to cover Google Ads because Google are one company that really do a lot for charity. And if you can engage with that, there's huge possibilities for any agency. For any charity. So that was on the 20th of March. On the 3rd of April, we're going to be looking at email marketing. So not only building an email list, but actually using some of these tools to create engaging emails to actually get people engaged with what you're doing, whether that be just telling people about events, upcoming things, getting donations and all that sort of thing. So that's on the 3rd of April. And then the last session, which I'd actually say I'm probably more excited about, is the top of the pops. I've done a lot of research and I've been speaking to, say, Charity Digital and a guy called Joel, and we've got some really cool tools that are available to most non-profit organisations, if not for free, heavily discounted. And there are some really cool things in there that I wish I could use for free. I have to pay a lot of money for them, but there are some really good tools in there that can help take any novice up to the next level. And then, I think there's going to be something for everyone in that one, and that's on the 17th of April. And then the only closing thing I've got, so one of the things I do as an agency is we run audits for people. And what this does, it looks at, it's about 47 different factors about a website, about how their online visibility is, performance and security, any technical issues around their website, content, GDPR statements, things like that. And we produce that in a PDF report that you can then create some actionable actions off the back of. It's really easy to look through for anyone, but what I'm sort of offering as part of this as well is a session where I'm happy to meet with you, whether in person, digitally, to say, look, this is the report on your website. It might look scary, but these are some of the things you can do yourself, and kind of give you the insight on how to do those things. So I'll get Roger to share this with everyone after the session. If anyone's interested in having an audit done of their website, I'm here. It's discounted for non-profits. We normally charge about £300 to do this for companies because it can take quite a long time to put together, especially given the time as well. So if it's of interest to anyone, please let me know. And I think that pretty much covers everything I had to cover, unless it's prompted any questions for anyone. No. And if not, that's absolutely fine. And everyone's still got 9 minutes to get some lunch before they sometimes have to go back to work.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We'll send a follow-up after this session, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.